Today, December 15th, marks the anniversary of a legend, a one-of-a-kind series that stole my heart and has refused to let go all this time later. I'd like to give a very happy 25th birthday to the motherforkin' Tales series. I don't know if you knew this, it's a pretty well-kept secret, but I'm head over heels for Tales. It's impacted my life in so many ways, introduced me to a lot of my best friends, helped me stay motivated to create content in such extensive analytical manners. God, this series has done so much for me. So today I thought I'd give a nice little video to celebrate all it means to me, including how I got into the series, some opinions here or there, and plenty of cringy, gushy stuff that I can't help whenever discussing the franchise, all ending with answering the big question. Why? Why do I love Tales? Hopefully with this video, we can answer just that. Before we get started though, I already know what some of you are thinking. Zaffer, has anyone ever told you that your voice is super attractive? Because your voice is super attractive. And to that, I say thank you. I try my best. But the rest of you are thinking, Zaffer, how the heck are you gonna tell us why you love the series when we don't even know how you got into the series in the first place? That's a great question, dear viewer. Allow me to address it. Let's take ourselves all the way back to 2012. This was a wild year in my life, featuring a much younger and foolish Zaffer. I wasn't too big into JRPGs around this time, but I was slowly but surely making my way into the genre. That being said, 2D platformers were my main squeeze, with Mega Man being one of my go-tos. Needless to say, this was a very hard time for me, because Mega Man was kinda dead. People complain about the dark age of Sonic, but at least you all got games, couldn't imagine that. At this point, I would take anything just mentioning the Blue Bomber, and that was when I stumbled upon a trailer for a major crossover game releasing soon titled Project Cross Zone. It would star characters from Capcom, Sega, and some other company called Namco Bandai or whatever. As a big Mega Man fan and an even bigger Sega fan, this was exciting news, and the trailer did a really good job at making the game look good. Everything was so fast-paced, energetic, and there were a bunch of characters I didn't know, but they seemed interesting design-wise. Most importantly though, X and Zero were here, so I had to get it no matter what. Like I said, I was desperate. As more information would reveal itself, it turned out that the game wasn't a fighter like I thought, but a strategy RPG, and I barely had any experience in that genre. The only one I played at the time was Shining Force, I think. My memory gets a little foggy in that area, but I got it anyway. I played the game, and incredibly mixed feelings aside, I pushed forward to the bitter end because I found myself liking a lot of the characters and their interactions between one another. There were dozens of references that flew completely over my head, meaning a lot of the flavor text meant nothing to me, but I was enjoying myself. And out of all the duos, the one pair that completely won my attention over, even more so than X and Zero crazily enough, was Yuri and Estelle. I didn't know anything about these two before playing the game, but they were so endearing. Yuri radiated this incredibly badass aura, and Estelle was such a fun character to see interact with everyone. Her reaction to meeting Kaguya was like the best part of the whole game. And their first battle being a duel was just the coolest. Everything about them screamed awesome, from the attacks they used in battle, to the music playing in the background, despite the game's renditions of them being trash, to their special attacks. These guys were so dope. I even found myself loving Flynn, keeping the three of them together at all times. Out of all the games and series I had grown interested in thanks to this game, I had to play whatever the heck they were from. Let's see here. Tales of Vesperia, huh? Why does that sound familiar? Wait! Is this the same series from that Tales of Symphonia game I kept hearing about? At the time, I had subscribed to this YouTuber that called it one of the best RPGs he'd ever played, but I never got around to playing it. And looking back at the review for that game, isn't the protagonist that guy from Smash Flash I really enjoyed playing as? Oh man, that's cool. It was like this series had been in my field of vision the whole time, like some kind of foreshadowed plot element, but you know, in my real life. As I watched the review for Symphonia again, only this time with the intention of getting into the series, the game seemed to be right up my alley. My dream game had always been one with a big story, relatable characters, and gameplay that replicates the feeling of a combo-driven fighting system but featuring multiplayer where my friends could jump in and out at any time. This would be how I imagined the perfect game playing out, and I didn't know that something like that already existed until now. That does it. I'm going to get into the series, and hopefully I can start with the trio that inspired me to find all this out in the first place. I started to go on the prowl in local game stores and ended up finding Tales of Symphonia Dawn of the New World. Haha! Jackpot! I bought the game for a very cheap price, which probably should have been a red flag, but I played it anyway, only to get a game over in the first dungeon. I put it on hard mode as a joke, but when I died, I figured I should just play the original first. Only problem was, at the time, it was super rare and way more expensive than it is now. But isn't Tales of Vesperia on the 360? I have a 360, surely I can find that. Took me a few weeks or something, I can't exactly remember, but one fateful day, there it was. That clean box art staring me right in the eye saying, yeah, I know you want a piece of this, was a feeling I will never forget. I was a few bucks short though, being an unemployed teenager, you see. So I did some household chores to get some money, went right back to the store, brought it to the register so I could purchase the game, and was a couple of cents off? Come on! My heart was shattered, but shoutouts to the GameStop employee whose name I forgot coming through. His friend was in line right behind me and asked him if he had a couple of extra cents on him because he told me that I needed to play this game. Lo and behold, the guy behind me in line said he did, gave me the spare change needed, and told me, you're gonna love the crap out of that game. I will never forget this day or moment. If I wasn't hyped enough already, I was hyped up at that point. Needless to say, I fell for Vesperia hard. And keep in mind, this was the original version. Flynn was only playable in one battle, Patty was MIA, there were a couple of scenes without voice acting amongst other things, but I didn't know, nor did I care. I ended up loving Yuri and Estelle far more than I could have anticipated, as well as the rest of the all-star cast. The story was gripping, tackling heavy subject matter and taking these characters to places other stories wouldn't dare. And that combat system, dude! I wasn't even that good at the game for the longest time, but I still ended up having a blast and even experimenting with a lot of the characters. Bosses started forcing me to get accustomed to the in-depth skill system, and I found myself growing a lot over the course of the playthrough, both in terms of my playable character's capabilities along with my own. The journey this game put me through was incredible and sent me through a spiral of emotions all the way until the very end. What a game, dude! And looking up other people's gameplay and whatnot afterwards, turns out that I had even more content I missed out on to dig into. How cool is that? My second playthrough was even better, doing just about every single side quest, gaining even more combat capabilities, and learning more about these multi-dimensional characters. I even got to top it all off with the true final boss, which holy crap was hard as hell, but I pulled through, and that invigorating feeling of pure raw victory was simply incredible. I say it a lot, but it's still not enough. I freaking love this game. I love it so damn much. It's my all-time favorite. And I felt this way after the very first time through, even if I was in denial, but eventually the feeling couldn't be contained. Tales of Vesperia is what I believe to be the best game I have or ever will play in my entire life, not just on its own merits, but the personal history and connection I forged with it over time. Because needless to say, I made a lot of memories with this game on my own and alongside some friends. I would have separate files for guests and I to just mess around in, like one would be for fighting all the Gigantos monsters, and another for going through the labyrinth of memories, and that was always a great time. I remember I had this thing with a girl, you know, we weren't like a couple, but we were both into each other. We were teenagers, you know, we had to have these needlessly complicated relationships. But anyway, she played the game a lot with me and grew really fond of playing Judith. Seeing her learn to and eventually pull off different air combos was honestly one of the hottest things I've seen in my entire life. Here's hoping she never watches this. A lot of my friends ended up playing this with me and they all had a blast. I managed to defeat this game's cameo battle with 3 other people, and it was such an intense, awesome battle. On top of the fact that the game gets better the more I play it as I learn more, or heck, just with the recent re-release, that of which being this game's definitive edition, there will never be another game I play quite like Tales of Vesperia. This was a pretty great start to my journey through the series, wouldn't you say? I proceeded to purchase pretty much all of the localized games with birthday money, barring everything pre-Symphonia and some spin-offs, because if Vesperia was just one game, I can only imagine the rest of the series following this general foundation while bringing new spins to the table, and I'm trying to eat good. The order in which I played these games gets a little hazy, but I'm pretty sure it was Symphonia, Abyss, Grace's F, Exilia, Legendia, Exilia 2, Dawn of the New World, and of course I eventually played Zestiria and Berseria around the time they came out. Symphonia and Abyss were games I really enjoyed, but Grace has put me through an existential crisis, a fact I'm sure anyone who watches this channel is well aware of. Still, the radical feelings the game gives me only raise my affection for the series in some strange way. It's a game I love, I hate, love to hate, hate to love? I have a headache, I'm moving on. Exilia was freaking awesome. Legendia is a game I should really dislike but love regardless, and Exilia 2 kept the Exilia awesomeness streak running. Out of all these games, the lowest opinions I had were a game I both love and hate, and a game I see as a guilty pleasure, so whether that's more negative than it is positive, I'll leave to your own discretion. This was a series working its way up my personal rankings, and even after playing Dawn of the New World and not really enjoying it upon my first time through, it wasn't enough to detract from the seemingly endless stream of greatness I had just endured. Tales of Zestiria had eventually released, and I saved it for last, since this was the latest one at the time. I definitely need to replay it for an updated opinion, but I remember liking it a lot more than people said I would. Combat wasn't up to snuff, that's for sure, but I like the emphasis on the overworld and exploration side that this series didn't really put too much of a focus on. I think the saddest part was that I knew I was missing out on another entire half of the series due to a lack of proper localization. There's so much I'm still uncovering to this day, and I hope that eventually I'll be given the proper opportunity to do so. But if I have to, I could always use methods Patty's taught me over the years. Oh my god, I forgot about Hearts R again! Guys, I am so sorry I keep forgetting about this game, but it's kinda for a reason. I tried playing it a bit after I got Zestiria when I got a PSTV for this and Persona 4 Golden, but I don't know, man. I thought it was so freaking boring. I never finished it and tried playing again sometime later, getting a little further this time, but I still couldn't finish it. I'll power through it eventually, but I want it to be at a time when I can play both this remake and the original DS version back to back in order to properly compare the two. Sorry to any Hearts R fans, I'm sure the game's fine, but I've got a lot to say already on the little I've played. And of course, I played Vesperia when it released a few years later and really enjoyed my time with it. Again, gotta replay it eventually, but you get the picture. Around this time was when I tried to get more into the fan base. Unfortunately, I was only able to find a couple of people into these games, whether that be through mutual friends or that one fandom app we don't talk about anymore. I know it's cringe that I used it at all, but I really wanted to talk with more people about these games. Barely anyone in my personal life even knew about them. I think one friend of mine only vaguely remembered Symphonia. It was so sad. Despite my efforts, it felt like the Tales fans were just not a part of the internet outside that one app. I tried looking up some YouTube content and there were a couple of people making videos on them, but where's the rest of the content, dude? I specifically remember wanting longer videos, as I felt there was so much more to talk about than what people were providing. It honestly seemed like nobody cared about these games enough to do so for whatever reason. I then was hit by a stroke of genius. I'm starting to get more into content creation on this channel. What if I made videos about the Tales series? My first Tales video was on Vesperia story, since my recently completed playthrough was still fresh in my mind, and I really enjoyed it. It got a bit of attention, but I remember getting this great idea after watching Super Butterbun's Final Fantasy Beginner's Guide video. What if I did what she did, only for the Tales series? I'm a freaking genius! Jimmy Neutron, who? I distinctly remember having a great feeling about the video as I was uploading it, and I've never felt this way about any other video I've made since. I just had this feeling that it was gonna blow up in some form, and sure enough, at the time of this recording anyway, it's my most viewed video. I know that it's pretty outdated, not only in terms of my channel's improved quality, but the given advice, but regardless, I feel like it helped a lot of people, and more importantly, made a lot of great friends because of it. People like me, who had been getting into the series and wanted others to talk about it, had finally come my way, and now I have a ton of people who I can just gush about the series with. With this in mind, I was starting to watch great YouTubers who focused on longer form analyses on the games they're passionate about, and thought that I could do something like that just with the Tales series. Gunvolt acted as a bit of a warm-up, but then I decided to properly kick off the Tales of retrospective, experiencing the entire series all over again, only this time I'd eventually get to all those order titles and Japan exclusive ones, which, let me tell you, has been one of my best ideas ever. Out of the ones I've done so far, I've immensely enjoyed forming a newfound appreciation for these games, and of course, they've helped me grow as a content creator and reviewer. Not to mention, these videos helped introduce me to even newer internet pals, which has been a blast. I want to say that without the Tales series, I wouldn't have made it as far as I have on YouTube, and I know that's not saying much given how I don't have the most subscribers in the world, but I've made so much progress, mainly as a result of this series. It feels like as time passes by, more and more bigger content creators, whether they be on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, or whatever, give this series the love and attention they deserve. It's awesome. I still don't feel like the games are as mainstream as other franchises like Fire Emblem, but it almost feels like this series is too good to be mainstream. I like the fan base as is currently, especially given how diverse we are. Literally every single entry has its select number of vocal fans, and I find that beautiful. Plus you all, as in the Tales fan base, are like a ton of fun. While we continue to traverse through the desert that is the lack of Arise news and Tales news in general on that matter, it feels much more bearable thanks to this group of passionate peeps. Okay, I've done so much rambling in this video, much to you all's dismay, I'm sure. But in all seriousness, I tend to do that whenever discussing this series as a whole. I can't help it. I love Tales so much, and all that's really left to say is the justification for that very statement. The why. Honestly, it's a combination of just about everything I said. I love Tales because it exposed me to my favorite game, introduced me to my favorite collective group of characters in all of media, made me laugh, cry, cheer, and shout in frustration, excitement, or a little bit of both. I love Tales because it keeps itself fresh by constantly shaking up its own formula in a variety of manners, to the point where the beginning of the series and where it is currently could almost pass as being two games from entirely different franchises. I love Tales because of the people it introduced me to, how it helped get my YouTube channel out of obscurity, at least out of how deep into obscurity it was before, and how much it helped me push my content even further as time has progressed. I love Tales because, gosh darn it, this series changed my life with its personal, intimate stories that surpassed my expectations on what my dream game could even be. They inspire, motivate, and push me past my limit. And riddle me this. Why the hell wouldn't I love something like that? And with that, I don't think I'm alone when I say all of this. I'd love to hear you guys' stories on how the series possibly impacted you all's lives, any fun memories you'd like to share, or just some form of a discussion surrounding positivity regarding the franchise. Let's get some discussions going on. Oh, and if you're new here, please feel free to stick around. I've got a whole backlog of Tales videos for you to enjoy, including an in-progress retrospective through the mainline entries at the very least. Whatever you decide to do, just thank you so much for watching this crazy fanboy gush about some JRPG series he loves way too much, and I hope that one way or another we'll cross paths once again. Until that day comes, I'll catch you all later.